Hello everybody, my name is Jen. It's nice to meet everybody. It's my first time recording myself, speaking on camera, so please bear with me. I am a bit nervous. Welcome to Crochet Class Basics. Today we will not be crocheting, unfortunately, but we will be talking about some of the basic information that I feel is very important. Just some basic information about some of the tools that we will be using, some basic information about yarn, and where I feel it's best to learn this information before you invest in anything. I feel it's very important to have an idea of some of what you want to use before you spend your hard-earned money in something that you may not like. Be it your tools, your crochet hooks, your yarn. I feel it's very important to understand what you're looking for, or at least have an idea of what might work the best for you before you invest in something that you may not like at all. So it's always best to have an idea of what works, what you're looking at, the possible items that would be best for you, the accommodations that are out there, specialized hooks, little gadgets that might help make things a little bit easier for you, if your budget allows. So these are all things that I think are important to think about before you start investing in any craft. So we'll talk about those things, and we'll learn a little bit about the history of crochet before we get started and before we actually start working with yarn. So the history of crochet is the origins are quite unknown. Some people think that crochet began in the Middle East and spread along the trade routes along the Mediterranean. Some people think that it began in South America with the indigenous tribes. Some people even think that it's a modified version of knitting. However it started, it doesn't matter. The development and widespread popularity of crochet that we know today is attributed to European immigrants who came to the U.S. during the late 1700s and early 1800s. Published patterns didn't become commonplace until the mid-1800s. The earliest crochet pattern using the word crochet has been found in a Dutch magazine dating to 1823. Because crochet came to the New World with immigrants, many early patterns were written using what we now refer to as British or UK terms. But as with anything else, crochet patterns have evolved over time. And currently, the most common ways patterns are written are using abbreviations and shorthand in UK and US terms and in symbols. Here we see a list of commonly used crochet symbols and abbreviations and terms. You can see that there are two terms next to each symbol that reflects the US and UK term, and then on the bottom you see the abbreviations. The abbreviations don't change, just the stitch for which it reflects. So I will be linking to all of the charts that and pages that you see in this video. I'll be linking to all of them in the description of the video, so you'll be able to pull them up and print them out for yourself if you'd like. So as you can see, This chart actually I really like because it has the symbols as well as the abbreviations to make it much easier for everybody. Here you see a symbol diagram pattern for a basic granny square. Typically when you use a symbol pattern, this is all you get. You won't always get a list of materials needed, a hook size, gauge size. A lot of times this is all you will get. Sometimes you'll get a partial pattern where you'll have to either repeat the pattern for each corner or each section, or you will have to reverse or mirror the pattern for the other side. So you would get half the pattern and then you would have to mirror it for the other side. This is the written pattern for the exact same granny square. Here you'll see this is completely written out. You'll see an actual materials needed, stitched used, any special notes, the pattern size estimated, each row or round will be written out. A lot of times you'll see, especially in beginner patterns, you'll see actual images of the piece as it's worked. So there are pros and cons to each type of pattern. The symbol pattern will be typically less pages, less printing, less ink. The written pattern tends to be more pages, so there are pros and cons to each type of pattern used. But I will do my best to try to teach you both styles. And again, you know, both UK as well as US terms. Here I'm showing you a crochet hook size chart. It's got 3 columns: US, English or UK, and metric. It's always a good idea to have something like this in your yarn bag, just to try to keep consistency with your hooks. Here in the US, more often than not, our hooks are stamped with either a letter or a millimeter or both. On a very rare occasion, you'll find UK hooks here in the US stamped with numbers instead. So it's always a good idea to have a little chart like this to where you can match up your hooks just for consistency. That's just trying to keep it even across the board. So it's always a good idea just to have something like this in your bag. Here we have some hooks that I have here at home. These are the ones that I use the most. It just depends on how busy of a day I've had, what I've had going on. I'll range all of these depending on how my hands feel. Hook number 1 is your very basic, run-of-the-mill, everyday hook that is very budget-friendly. You can pick these up very affordably, just about anywhere that you can find yarn. Option number 2, again, a very commonly found hook with just a slightly larger handle. This is a bamboo handle, but you can find them in plastic handles, rubber handles that are just a little bit wider. Hook number 3 also is very budget friendly. I found this one on Amazon in a full set. It wasn't very expensive at all. This handle is wider but flat. So that might be an option that would work well for you depending on how your hand is shaped. And then option number 4, hook number 4, very wide fat handle. When I've been grooming and a lot of haircuts and a lot of vibrations from my clippers, and my hands hurt or my hands are extremely tired and I can't grip very well, this is the hook I run to every time. This set is still fairly new for me. It was definitely a little bit more expensive, but I'm finding it's working really well for my hands when they're super tired. So these are just some options that might make crochet a little bit more comfortable for you. But again, you know, just as the handles get bigger, the price does go up. So it's something to think about if you need those accommodations, you might put a little bit more out for your hooks to make crochet a little bit more comfortable, but you can save a little bit if you go with an economical choice in your yarn. So in some ways you can spend a little bit more on one thing, but cut the cost in another thing to be able to afford the thing that might be needed. So this is one of the reasons I wanted to go over some of these things. And here, as you can see, basic yarn needles and a pair of sharp scissors. These two are my favorite yarn needles. The biggest thing you need to know, make sure they don't have any barbs. You just don't want anything to catch or snag on your yarn. That way it doesn't pull it out of shape when you're weaving in your ends. So let's talk yarn. So there are a ton of different types of yarn on the market. Super economical to costing you an arm and a leg. It really depends on what your budget is and what you want to work with, your personal choices. The economical choices are brands that you can see every day, like Red Heart Super Saver. This yarn you can find just about anywhere, from Walmart to craft stores, Joann's, Michael's. I mean, you can find Red Heart just about anywhere. All the way up to fiber artists online, that it's $40, $50 for hanks that are this big. So it really just depends on what type of fiber you want to work with, where you're sourcing your yarn, and if you have any fiber allergies, that's something to also think about. There are some people who are legitimately allergic to certain fibers, so that's something to keep in the back of your mind. I have a friend of mine that is allergic to wool. She cannot touch wool, so she would not be able to touch this because this is 100% wool. So she would have to stay with something that's cotton, or like this that is, or this that is 100% acrylic. So it's something that is a personal choice, and it's also a budget choice. So there's also different sizes of yarns. By size, I mean the width and thickness of the yarn. So this is what's classified as a 4-weight. It's also called a medium or worsted weight. This is also a medium or a worsted weight. See how big that is. This is a 2. I'm going to show you the label, and we'll discuss that. So this is the label. You're looking at the first square is the weight of the yarn. The second square is the recommended hook size. Third square is the recommended needle size. And then the last section is the recommended care and washing instructions. Here is an extra gadget. It's not a necessity, but if your budget allows, it is a nifty tool to have. They're called stitch markers. The 3 on the left are actual stitch markers. If you want some, but you don't want to invest or can't afford actual stitch markers, head on down to the dollar store. The 2 on the right are great options and alternatives that are affordable. Safety pins and paper clips. Another nifty tool that is not a necessity but could be beneficial to somebody who has arthritis, hand injury, or weakness like I do. Yarn tension rings. The one on the left is a peacock. You would wrap the yarn around and under the beak of the peacock. The one on the right is a cat. You would wrap the yarn around and under the curl in the tail. And these basically help to keep the tension in the yarn even and consistent. So I hope I've been able to help you learn a little bit about some of the basic tools that you'll need, which are 4 basic tools: yarn, needles, scissors, and hook. There are tons of options for each of those. But as I mentioned, you don't have to have all of them. All the gadgets. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg for this craft. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. There are options for those with physical limitations, like myself. There are the basic for those who don't need anything special. So I hope it's been informative. I hope I've given you some things to think about to try to make your experience as successful as possible. I'm hoping to have the very next video up in just a couple of days, where we begin to actually start stitching. So thank you for joining me. I hope I've given you some things to think about, and I hope to see you again. Thanks.